G'day guys and gal. Continuing my trend of answering questions no one actually asked about, we are taking a look at our Grizzly Astartes still have their sausages intact. And if they do indeed have their little jerrys, how functional are they, and does this vary between different Space Marines? We'll also attempt to answer the deeply metaphysical question, is their compromised libido the reason why the galaxy is being completely gutter stomped? For fun, we'll also check out if the Custodians and Primarchs can get more than a semi-boner for something other than Chaos or the Emperor. Let's get into it. A man's willy is his sword, his shield and his armour. It is the light that keeps the darkness at bay, if used for good, but not for evil. The willy in the wrong hands will lead to nothing but suffering, and also being registered as a sex offender. The Emperor knew this registry well and vowed none of his creation would ever shamefully be on it. The schlong can be just as powerful as an asset as a liability, often leaving good men from their righteous path onto the path of sexual harassment lawsuits, or even causes some men to take up the mantle of priesthood. Be honest with yourself, how many times have you made a decision purely based on getting your dick wet? Even when your brain, heart and gut are screaming you not to make it. I know I have, way too many times. A Space Marine is everything a man is times 10. He's faster, stronger, smarter, and more long-lived. The only thing a Space Marine does not excel in against a human would be things that have been removed or deactivated, such as social skills or their libido. Fortunately for the Space Marines, their cocks are not removed during their ascension. However, as a side effect of the augmentations as well as mental indoctrination, an Astarte can no longer get his dick hard, or has any desire to penetrate things unless it's with his knife. This side effect is likely deliberate, as the Emperor had witnessed thousands of years of war and conflict and the horrors it included. A big one being the disgusting levels of rape that women would endure when their cities were sacked due to the extreme testosterone of the invaders. And Astartes with a functional dick would have that effect times 10, as they literally sweat testosterone. As an example to this, the Emperor's children were given the gift of their sex drive back from Dr. Slanesh, and now all they do is rape and pillage. Hence, it was removed, so the Emperor wouldn't have an army of sex pests. Another reason why it was removed, so that Space Marines would be less inclined to fall in love, hence their loyalty is taken from the Emperor and their Primarch and given to some thought. It would also avoid Space Marines gaining a fear of death, if they had someone they loved waiting for them. Although to be fair, I feel like anything a Space Marine would stick his dick in wouldn't live very long, so maybe that last point is less relevant. This works greatly for Games Workshop and their writers, as the whole setting would become way more grimdark if all the big boys were swinging their massive dongs around. If you think about it, they managed to avoid the top of sex and dicks almost entirely. Greenskins are fungus, so no dick. Space Marines can't get boners. Craftworld Elder are scared of Slanesh, so they mostly just artificially inseminate, or if they do bang, it's a very long spiritual process. Dark Elder are Dark Elder, so they obviously have a bunch of sex slaves, but they even avoid talking about that. Necrons are robots, and Tyranids just eat and crap out your biomass. I for one am grateful about this. Imagine a room of these dudes attempting to write about sex. Not ideal for anyone involved. As stated, Games Workshop don't like discussing this, hence they haven't gone into detail about how the Marines are castrated. In modern times, we have chemical castration, however I don't think that's what they use. I would say it's the intense brainwashing and indoctrination, as well as the effect of the gene seed, which would make a Space Marine have absolutely no desire to do anything but purge heretics and Xenos. This also explains why there is some old lore and insinuation that Space Wolves get it on, as they are less strict in their brainwashing, and also the women of Fenris can actually take it. So the standard Space Marines are castrated, just not chemically or physically. They do so optionally, as we established they are all autistic as fuck, so that probably doesn't help in the Lady Killer game either. What are some outliers here? Well, we have the Emperor's children. Old lore literally details how they torture and rape their captives, plus they have completely given themselves over to Slanesh, who is the god of sex, drugs and rock and roll. However, as it is 2020, they don't want to be seen going into detail about the birds and the beads anymore, so now Emperor's children just snort fat lines of cocaine and scream all the time. Not sure which one is worse, to be honest. I'm not even going to think about what the other Chaos Legions might do with their willies, because that is traumatizing. Now what about other transhumans such as Primarchs or Custodians? Well, the first issue is that the physical incompatibility that would happen between a Space Marine and a chick would be elevated even further, especially from a Primarch. The Primarchs were not brainwashed, and thought quite freely, however they were still made in a lab, and I'm pretty sure Daddy E wasn't keen on creating overpowered sex machines. Maybe they were able to pull it off when they were like 5 years old, which is when they reached the size of a normal man, but then that raises some strange ethical questions. All the Primarchs, especially Vulcan, and maybe not Jaggadai, would have horse cocks, hence sex would be impossible. I also think they don't masturbate either, as they all act and talk like they are unbelievably sexually frustrated and don't know how to deal with it. Other than Fulgrim, but he's probably a bad example. The Custodians are the interesting ones. As far as we know, they are all dudes, and despite being infinitely loyal to the Emperor, they seem to be less cooked in the brain than Space Marines. They also have the Sisters of Silence, who from what I have seen could probably take their dicks. Once again, we have no concrete lore in this, as the writers don't like talking about perfectly oiled horse cocks, so we have the next best thing. Yep, their dicks definitely work. Now for the meat of the video. Would the setting of 40k be in better shape if all these demigod super soldiers could use their dicks? Well, it could go either way. Fulgrim now appears to have control of multiple dicks, and he's the biggest degenerate there is, whereas the Emperor has been confirmed in lore to have clapped many cheeks, and he's a swell guy. I think the issue here is that Fulgrim didn't bang anything for his entire life, and then he was suddenly become like this avatar of dicks. Here's an analogy that you Americans will like. If you grow up with guns, you learn to respect them and use them responsibly, but if you're given a gun for the first time as an adult and told to go have fun, you might end up going off to shoot someone. Obviously, that analogy has a lot of things wrong with it, but you get what I mean. Frustration seems to be a driving force in people's fall to chaos, and they were limited in how they could deal with it. They mostly just started killing shit, but if that instead had the option to plow some bitches, then maybe they would have enough post-clum clarity to realize forfeiting your soul to hell is actually not a swell idea. It's clear that there's a lesson here. If you have a woman, smash your woman. If you have a man, smash your man. And if you have hands, then smash yourself. If you have none of these, then I hope you're a space wolf, because they get one extra option. If you enjoyed this video and want to support the channel, then head over to the Patreon where I've commissioned a boatload of sexy Warhammer art just for us. Join the Discord for more memes, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.